Arizona, the land of sunlight, scorching deserts and majestic mountain ranges. But beneath that wild beauty lies some of the darkest secrets. In today's video, you'll hear 3 true horror stories, each one taking place deep in the forest, along a quiet riverbank, or in the middle of a crowded city. From a stormy night in the mountains, where something or someone kept tapping on your tent, to a scream in the dark and a car speeding off into the cold pouring rain, and finally a bold kidnapping attempt in broad daylight orchestrated by people who knew exactly what they were doing. If you think Arizona is nothing but sunlight and burning sand, just listen to these stories till the end, and you'll see that some things are colder than the desert at night. Story 1. The Storm on the Cliffside. My wife and I had never gone camping in Arizona before. That trip was our first, and it might also be our last. I picked a spot on a mountainside deep in the national forest, more than 30 kilometers down a gravel road. The place was completely isolated. No cars, no cell signal, just the wind howling through the trees and the distant calls of forest birds from the valley below. We set up our tent, wandered around, took some sunset photos, and ran into a group of 4 men sitting around a campfire nearby. Locals by the sound of their thick western drawls. When we asked about the storm that was supposed to be coming, one of them chuckled and said, "Don't worry, rain out here's nothing." That line gave me more comfort than it should have. By nightfall, the sky had turned pitch black. Before getting into our tent, we passed a young woman walking her dog, accompanied by an older woman. They smiled and nodded at us, then disappeared down a narrow trail leading deeper into the woods. I remember clearly the faint beam of their flashlight slowly vanishing, like it was swallowed whole. Around 10:30 p.m, I woke to the sound of rain hammering the tent thunder, cracking across the cliffs above us. No stars, no moon, just a suffocating blackness surrounding everything. But the storm didn't come alone. Every few minutes I heard a strange sound, like something sliding along the side of the tent, dragging across the nylon fabric. I told myself it was probably hail or ice falling from the trees. But then right at midnight I heard footsteps. Slow, deliberate. They stopped right next to our tent. I held my breath. It felt like someone was standing just inches away, unmoving. My heart pounded so hard I could feel it knocking against my ribs. And then, a breath, deep, heavy. It wasn't an animal. I squeezed my husband's hand tightly, trying to signal him to stay still. Instead, he sat up and called out, "What's wrong?" The sound outside stopped. Instantly, we both froze, lying still in the dark. About an hour later, we woke again, this time to the tent wall collapsing inward, pressing down onto my husband's body. Panicked, he shoved back with all his strength, and whatever was on the tent slid off with a loud familiar sound. It was hail. Thick layers of ice had built up over the hours. Maybe that was the source of those earlier dragging noises, but the unease never left. We tried to stay put until morning, until 3 a.m. Somewhere beyond the storm, a scream tore through the night. A woman's scream. Not angry, but pure panic. Terror. It came from deep in the woods, the same direction we'd seen the young woman and older lady heading earlier. Then another scream, longer, more desperate. And then an engine. A car tearing down the gravel wheels, skidding, and then gone. That was it. We didn't wait another second. We grabbed flashlights, bags and car keys and bolted through the rain to the clearing where we parked. I called 911 at the moment we got inside, but dispatch said it would take over an hour to reach us due to the storm and remote location. As we drove out of the forest, we passed the site where those 4 men had been camping. Their 3 vehicles gone, but their tents were still there. Chairs knocked over, gear scattered, like they left in a panic or never got the chance to. I don't know what's happened that night, but I know this: whatever tapped on our tent wasn't hail, and that scream, I still hear it every time I close my eyes. Story 2. The black SUV in Phoenix. I grew up in Tucson, Arizona. I was 17 at the time and had been invited to spend the weekend at a friend's place in Phoenix. His family was one of those golf club, country club types, and the moment I arrived, his parents left for the day. That first evening we hung out with 3 of his other friends. One of them had borrowed his mum's Toyota Camry. Typical teenage rebellion followed loud music, cruising through downtown Beerweed, the usual chaos. Around midnight we stopped at a red light at an empty intersection. Out of nowhere, a black SUV pulled up next to us. The windows were completely tinted, but then the driver's window rolled down. The man inside wore a black t-shirt, a baseball cap, and sunglasses. At night, he slowly reached out of the window holding a handgun and mumbled something none of us could hear. But the gun, that part, was crystal clear. We panicked. The driver, my friend, slammed on the gas and blew right through the red light. The SUV followed instantly. The Camry's engine started sputtering, losing power. We swerved through back streets, taking random turns. But the SUV stayed with us, like it knew every corner before we turned. At some point I genuinely believed we were going to die. In blind panic, we turned into an old abandoned auto shop. There was no exit. We were trapped. The SUV pulled in behind us. Its headlights beamed directly into our windshield. A door opened. A man stepped out. I still remember how the barrel of the gun glinted under the light, silent, still, and terrifying. No one spoke. We just sat there frozen. Then he walked toward the driver's side, toward my friend. As he approached, my friend stared straight ahead, lips trembling. I was in the back, gripping the back of the seat so tightly my fingers hurt. Then suddenly the man spoke. "Oh, sorry. Thought you were someone else." That was it. He turned, got back in the SUV and drove off like nothing had ever happened. We sat there in total silence for 5 minutes. Nobody said a word. Then we drove straight back to my friend's house. No police. No telling anyone. We never spoke of it again. Not until I was back in Tucson did I realize what truly chilled me. On the floor of the car, a small crumpled piece of paper, probably dropped while he was standing next to the door. Scrawled on it in shaky handwriting was just one sentence: "Next time, no mistake." Story 3. The Riverbank Abduction Plot. I still remember that day vividly, even though it happened over 15 years ago. I was only 8 at the time, and my family had gone to Sedona for the 4th of July, a region in northern Arizona known for its pine forests, rivers, and cooler weather compared to the southern deserts. We picked a secluded riverbank to spend the day. Just a few other families were scattered around. While everyone went swimming, I wandered off to collect rocks. I was obsessed with finding little quartz crystals or fossils among the river pebbles, lost in my own little world, not paying attention to anything else. At that point, only my stepdad, stepmom, one of my sisters and I were still at the site. Everyone else had driven into town to grab supplies for the cookout. I must have been gone for about 30 minutes walking along the river when I suddenly heard a gunshot from up the slope, near the pavilion where my stepmom had been sitting. Panicked, I ran back. She was standing there stiff and tense, clutching her purse. I asked what happened, and she simply said, "Everything's fine, sweetie. I dropped something," and I believed her. But 5 years later, when I was 13, she told me the truth. That day, after most of us left, she had stayed alone on a stone bench near the empty pavilion. A red car pulled into the lots. 2 men inside. They didn't get out. They just sat there, staring at her for several minutes. My stepmom had been trained in shooting by her dad. She kept a handgun in her purse, and something in her gut told her something was wrong. Then the car inched closer. The 2 men finally stepped out. They were dressed sharply, clean shirts, neat haircuts, sunglasses, polished, but off. Something was off. One of them began circling the pavilion. The other approached from the opposite side like they were trying to flank her. When they were about 20 feet away, one of them spoke. "Come with us, pretty girl." She didn't hesitate. She pulled the gun, aimed it at the guy on the left. "Back off. I'm not going anywhere." The other man immediately rushed toward her. She turned, fired a shot into the ground near his feet. The gunshot shattered the silence. Both men froze. The one she nearly hit fell backward, and his sunglasses flew off, revealing a familiar face. It was one of the 2 hikers we'd seen earlier that morning, just walking through the woods. We thought they were just regular backpackers. The other guy didn't try to help his friend. He sprinted back to the car, slammed it in reverse, and peeled out. The one on the ground scrambled after him, and they disappeared in a cloud of dust. My stepmom stood there shaking but firm. When I came running back, she acted like nothing had happened. The police said they'd keep an eye out for a suspicious red car, but we never saw those men again. And there's something I still can't explain. That morning when we passed them, they had long hair, scruffy beards, and were wearing hiking gear. But that afternoon when they returned, they looked like 2 entirely different people. Clean cut, shaven, dressed up, calculated. It must have been a ruse. Maybe they weren't just targeting my stepmom. Maybe they were watching the other girls in our family too. They had planned it from the start, scouted us, disguised themselves, and came back, ready. But my stepmom, she wasn't the kind of woman you could take quietly. 3 stories, 3 experiences that the people involved will never forget. Whether you're deep in the woods or right in the heart of the city, never let your guard down around things that seem normal. A soft knock, a strange look from across the street, might be the beginning of a nightmare you never saw coming. If you've ever lived through a terrifying night, share it in the comments. Who knows? Your story might be the next haunting tale told right here. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share to help spread the warning to others. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again in the next shadow.